Okay guys, so let's get into our inspiration of the day, which is the great Roger Federer. Watching him hit a serve here in slow motion, and then we're going to rewind it and we're going to take a look at 12 key elements of the serve. I know that sounds like a lot, but as we go through our 7-day serve challenge, we're going to break it down into bite-sized chunks, which is really the best way to practice. So there's a beautiful serve by Federer. I'm rewinding it right now, and I'm going to start pointing out these 12 key elements. I've got this stylus here, which doesn't write very well on the iPad, so it's going to be like trick and scratch. But I think you'll see very clearly that when I point these 12 key elements out, they're really important and are going to make your serve a whole lot better. So key element number one, and he's just in warm-up mode too, so his legs would probably even be a little wider, is the stance. Okay, so key element number one, I'm just going to come here and write, and it's the, I think I have to write in cursive to really make this work. So it's the stance. Okay, again, it's chicken scratch, but just so you can kind of follow all the key elements. Now notice how his legs are going like that, right? They're not straight back, they're not out to the side like that. So we're just going to undo this here, and I'm going to blow this up so you can see this. I like how his toe is basically coming right inside his sneaker, and he might even widen this base. He might even widen this base when he plays, okay? But that's the stance that he's in and what it's going to help with. So why the stance is such a big deal and you don't want to overlook it is what the stance is going to help with, guys, is when he goes and starts to go into his serve, and notice how his toss also moves out here. See, look how his toss is not just straight into the court, but he's coming out here to the side with his toss, which we'll get into as well this week, really learning how to do this exactly like Federer. But we can see that his chest is pointing back towards us, that it's pointing back towards us. We can see it. So I'm going to show you guys how to easily do this. It's pretty simple, but we want to do some drills on court together today to really get the feeling of it. So I've got some cool ideas for you to do. This practice is going to be really easy to go through. Okay, so that's number one. Now, the next thing that I want you to notice is this little thing that he's doing. Let's zoom in on his wrist. So key element 2 is a relaxed wrist, and you're going to be relaxed in a couple of key positions. Some of you may not come down here with your racket, but I know players that do come down here with a racket, they're holding their wrists very loose so they can whip, okay? Also, when they come up here, the wrist gets nice relaxed, where a lot of recreational players, it's like a flat board. So the wrist is key, as you can see here, for Mr. Federer. And you've watched Djokovic, he does it, Rafa does it, because they all kind of come down here too. Andy Roddick would more do it up here. So let me just come here, and so now we've got number one, we've got the stance, and number two is the wrist, okay? And as you can see, this is chicken scratch. I'm just going to leave the W there. The W stands for wrist. Okay, let's get into the next key move. Hold on, I got to stop this. Okay, so our next key fundamental move is we're going to look at the toss release. And I had a big problem actually, guys, with the toss release. I used to toss the ball, super embarrassing. I used to toss the ball way over there and have to chase it. Don't chase your toss like I had to do. As when I heard this one awesome tip from a USPTA professional, so that's why it's always good to keep your education going, because you never know what magical tip you're going to get, and this might be it for you, is he said the nose always knows. So release your toss at the nose, so it's not running one way or the other for you. And if you look at Federer's toss release here, it's pretty much, you can see it's about leaving the hand at the nose, maybe the eyes. So I think the nose or the eyes, either one of those cues is really going to make a big difference for you. If you find that sometimes your toss goes too far over your head or goes too far out in front, you just find it's all over the place, it's a great thing to kind of get your toss consistent. Okay, so after we leave that key fundamental, we go into the next key fundamental, which is the tilt. okay? So the tilt is our next key fundamental here, guys. And the tilt is what separates the pros from the Joes, I like to say, because whenever I look at a professional, it's such a beautiful move. They all get into that deep tilt, and a lot of recreational players, their shoulders are even, or even going this way, which is going to hurt your shoulder and take tons of power away. So you don't want to be in this position. You want to get yourself into the tilt, and we're going to make sure that we cover this and get really good at this week, because it's going to make a big difference in your extension going up to hit the ball, which is going to add a lot of power. So this really sets up the power, and you can see that Federer also at this point is into something. I love this position right here. He's in the something that I call the secret power source. So the secret power source is the next key serve fundamental that we want to master. If you watch my videos, you know I talk about it all the time, but look how beautiful Federer is set up there. And we notice that, again, that wrist is in a nice relaxed position. And I find that Federer and Roddick, they do such a great job of getting this position. Take a look at that wrist, okay? Super relaxed. This helps him to like come here and get into a really big whipping motion. So that's the next thing we're going to be working on in our 7-day serve challenge. We've got lots of great exercises to do this. And after the secret power source, okay, our next key move that we want to be working on this week is the leg drive, okay? So I'm just going to go, let me draw here because I like to draw. LD, okay? The leg drive is the next key fundamental move. And what's interesting is the pros, before you actually see their legs go up, they're thinking about going up. So that's when the racket's going to start going back behind their head. If you go back before this move, you're going to lose, again, tons of power. You're going to have a lot of leaks in your serve. So Federer here, he basically right now, his knees are bent and he's starting to really think about it. He's thinking just one last final time. He's starting to think about shooting himself up. And once he shoots himself up, then the racket's going to go back here. And this happens a lot faster, obviously, in regular time than it does going frame by frame. But you can see now he's basically raising his, he's getting on his tippy toes, he's going up in the air, and now the racket's dropping behind his head. And so that's the next thing. We got the leg drive and then the racket drop, okay? And with the racket drop, there's two ways to do it that's acceptable. Number one, obviously, Mr. Federer, it's acceptable. You see how his strings are basically facing towards the stands? That's one way you can do it, okay? The other way is like Serena, who also has an awesome serve. Her strings will be more facing in towards her back. That is okay too, and that's what I do. What isn't okay, what is a no-no, is to get here doing this into the frying pan position, which we're gonna work a lot on how to get out of doing that, correcting that, because I think that's, again, one of the key fundamentals on these 12. That's a big gotcha that a lot of people just can't figure out on their own. I got your back this week with our 7-day serve challenge. And once he does that, now he's getting up and he's attacking the ball on edge. Okay, so Mr. Federer now is attacking the ball on edge. This again, because it just seems like it's like a matter of trust. It's like, how am I going to attack the ball at the edge of the racket the way Federer is right here? And how am I going to hit the tennis ball? It just looks crazy. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, how is he going to hit the tennis ball? But once you learn the proper swing path, it's not actually as complicated as you think it is, and it's not that hard to do. So now the next move is what I call the moment of truth, and that's when we get ready to hit the ball. So you come out of the edge of power into the moment of truth, which is your contact point. You can see how Federer's nice and extended there. Okay, his arms straight up there, out to the side a little bit. So really take a good look at how he's doing this in his moment of truth position, and he's hitting the ball. And then after the moment of truth, the next key fundamental is the pronation, which again, if you set up a lot of this stuff just perfectly before you hit the ball, a lot of this stuff starts to go quickly where you're not even having to think about it. And with so many people kind of overthink pronation. And then finally, we're going to get into our last two moves, which is the landing. That's key fundamental number 11 is your landing, and you want to make sure, look how Federer's toe is landing, and it's pretty much in line with the box that he's hitting, okay? So perfect balance, when you're landing, and you got to work on your recovery. We're going to do some drills on that. People really don't work on that, and that's a big no-no. That's why you're missing within your first 3 shots most of the time. And then the follow through. Okay, so those are the 12 key fundamentals that we're going to be going over in our 7-day serve challenge. And so let's get going. I'm super excited, and we're going to work on just 2 key fundamentals today that are huge. That's going to really set up a great foundation for your serve. So let's jump right in.